Ladies and gentlemen, may I have your attention, please? The show starts in 3, 2, 1, go.
Good morning, CaneSport. It's January 17th, 2022. I'm Gary Ferman, the publisher of CaneSport.com, joined as always by our managing editor, Matt Shodell, as we discuss the news of the day. And Matt, it's been a whirlwind of a weekend. It seems like it's been a week instead of 2 days since we last did Good Morning CaneSport, but a lot went on this weekend, and I guess we should touch on some of those things as well as look forward a little bit at what's going to be going on this week, which is going to be absolutely amazing as well. So let me start with the transfer commitment that the Hurricanes got over the weekend from Ole Miss running back Henry Parish, a guy that went to Miami Columbus High School, that a lot of people thought should have been a Miami Hurricane coming out of high school, but he was not recruited seriously by the Hurricanes. Miami focused on Don Chaney and Jalen Knighton. And now here we are. We got all three of them back together at the U. Let me start with this, Matt. Should Miami have just signed Henry Parish out of high school?
I guess. I don't know.
I'm putting you on the spot on Monday.
He was 5'9" and 175 pounds. So, like, I mean, I got to tell you, like, it's great for people who love Henry Parish. It's great Miami took him, but I'm pretty sure he's going to be a sophomore. So now they have 4 sophomore running backs on the roster. It's just, to me, it's just not ideal to have 4 kids in one class. There's going to be another kid that transfers probably at some point, maybe 2 that'll transfer at some point. Like, I don't know.
I was going to interrupt you, but people are getting mad at me.
Look, if Parish is going to be a featured back, great. If he's a role player,
he's going to be one of it.
That's why I don't need numbers, but I'd rather take a senior as the number. If you could just
he'll be in the rotation. Watch.
Then I'd rather take a senior number guy. That's all.
They coined the phrase "not for long" for NFL. I'm going to say "not for long," or they're going to have a logjam at running back. Obviously Cody Brown and Thaddeus Franklin are under the gun here. Jalen Knighton is solidified in the rotation. Don Chaney, if he's healthy, will get playing time. And Henry Parish is going to get playing time. So where does that leave Thaddeus Franklin and Cody Brown? At least one of those two is probably going to depart after spring practice, let's be honest. I mean, if not before. This is as clear a message as can be that when Mario Cristobal and this new staff did their evaluations of the current roster, that they felt like they still could and needed to get better at running back. And I think Henry Parish makes them deeper and better. And, Chaney's always been hurt. Knighton, you can't count on to be a workhorse running back. You have to really manage his touches. And if anything, he was being used too much running up the middle and taking a pounding in that regard that his body is not really built for. So I love the pickup. I love getting that extra running back. I expect Henry Parish to be part of the rotation.
Like I said, who wouldn't you have liked at running back? You like anybody who comes in, you're like, that's great. They got a running back. Like, who wouldn't you have liked?
Because I'm not shy about how I feel about the roster. The roster needs to get better.
Everywhere. It's my turn. It's my turn.
Place. It's always your turn. But the roster needs to get better everywhere.
This is all right.
According to your fans on YouTube, I don't know what the hell I'm talking about ever anyway. So
that's just my parents. This kid is a kid who was recruited by the Ole Miss coach to Ole Miss, and now he's at Miami because of that and his Miami ties. If the Ole Miss running backs coach doesn't come, I'm not sure they would still take a Henry Parish. Henry Parish, I think, was he 4th on the team in rushing yards this past year, something like that, and with a quarterback ahead of him, also, so 3rd best running back, if I'm remembering correctly. He's never really been a featured guy where he's been. Based on his size, I think he's 5'10", 190, maybe I think is what he was listed at. I mean, it's good enough size, but like he's not a guy who's going to run over people if you believe in the Mario Cristobal, Alex Mirabal, bruising run game type thing. I just want them to get like stud running back, like feature back. Like we covered the team, Gary, and they had Frank Gore and they had Willis McGahee, and they you go down the list. I just don't see a guy on the roster. I don't want 5 guys on the roster this year that are just guys. I want 2023 to have 2 studs without saying, hey, there's 4 like there's 4 sophomores on your roster. Over here on this team, you got 2 graduating seniors. I can be the starting running back easy there. Like, I just don't want that. I want them to get Mark Fletcher. I want them to get one of these other guys.
There you go. You just said it right there. Mark Fletcher is the guy that'll be a big issue in recruiting. And let's not forget the Trevante Citizen kid that is still in the picture.
He's not coming here, man. That's a pipe dream. That's a vacation.
It might be, but they're trying. And the point is they are trying to elevate the position. And within a year or so, they should be able to. But right now, they can only recruit who they can recruit. They tried to recruit Sean Dollars from Oregon. Phil Knight stepped in and got him an NIL deal to keep him in Oregon. So they might have taken Henry Parish anyway. I don't know. But so they got Henry Parish and they fortified the position. I think it's a good thing.
People say I'm too negative, and I am. I happily admit it. I'm a very pessimistic.
You talk to. Let me finish. There's just many people that like worship you. So
that's not what I'm talking about. I'm very pessimistic by nature. So whatever. I don't care. People can say it. It's true. But here's my issue. Like, I don't want Miami to be Ole Miss South. I don't want Miami to be Oregon South. Those 2 programs are fine, but they're not national championship programs that I think Miami wants to build. And I don't want Miami trying to build it with like leftover backups from these 2 programs just because they have connections to coaches that now are at Miami. Like, I want these Miami coaches to say, forget where we were. I don't want those guys. I'm starting over. You're part of our new future. You're part of our new plan, which is what they're telling kids. But then they're taking kids from their past programs or waiting for kids to come in the portal from their past programs. Like, I don't want those. Like, this is just me. But I'm thinking, like, stop recruiting the West Coast so much. Let's get these kids from South Florida all to stay here. Like, that's 80%. I want 80% of every class from here on out to be from South Florida and to have all these kids who all know each other to be telling their friends, we're going to win this together. We grew up together playing Pop Warner together, which they all do know each other. Like, we have a story today with Brandon Innis, who's coming down to Miami on Saturday with like 10 of the top prospects in the whole country. Like, get all those kids. Like, stop messing around with these backup numbers from this guy who's going to be here for 3 years, clogging up the space and go to a 2023 kid. Like, it's not for me. That's just me.
Yeah, and I'm not blaming you for what I'm about to say. I'm seeing this a lot. But what's wrong with walking and chewing gum? What's wrong with getting the best kids in South Florida and going out to the West Coast and going to the Northeast and going to the Midwest and getting some of the best players from around the country?
You're living in a pipe dream. That doesn't exist. It doesn't work.
I don't think you're living in a pipe dream anymore. There's a new sheriff in town, Matt. There's a new sheriff in town. It's been so long since we've seen it. You've probably forgotten what it looks like, but
you got to start somewhere, do that well, and then expand out. Not expand out and try to do everything at once and then get smaller after that. That doesn't work.
Okay, there's a new sheriff in town. He's going to pull kids. This is a guy that recruited in a pandemic year at Oregon.
He's going to be great, but not what you're saying. He's not going to do what you're saying.
Interrupting me already.
No, because you're wrong.
It's the Pacific Northwest, okay? Oregon, okay? In the middle of nowhere, Eugene, Oregon, okay? And this guy recruited the top player in 9 different states, okay? Now he is at the University of Miami, the U, okay? He's got a lot more. They don't have the same level of facilities yet. That's coming. But everything else, quality of university, the city, the culture, everything else is in place to be able to recruit at a similar level as they did at Oregon, and they can walk and chew gum. They can get the best players in South Florida, and they can, because they're going to get Shamar Stewart, I think, and they can go and recruit kids like Dave Iuli, an offensive lineman from the West Coast, and be successful in both areas. They can go to Jacksonville and get the defensive end that I think they're going to get. I mean, they can do more than one thing. And I think everyone's just got to get used to it, and they can walk and chew gum, Matt. And I wouldn't worry that if they're trying to recruit kids out of state, that they're not going to get kids from in town. I don't think those things have to be exclusive to each other.
Well, I will tell you that in the past, they had trouble with out-of-state kids at Miami because the negative recruiting against Miami for out-of-state kids, and it's going to proliferate tremendously now that Mario's the coach and these other schools know what they're up against. The negative recruiting always was the same to every kid back in those days when Miami was actually competing for top 4 and 5-star kids. And it was, you can go to Miami, but they favor the South Florida kids there. If you're on the same depth chart with a 4-star that comes from Miami, you're going to be behind that kid. And out-of-state kids listen to that when other programs say that. And they've said it I mean, this is not something I'm making up. This is every single year for years. And so that's why I'm saying, like, you can do it, Gary. You can walk
They're
and
not
chew
going
gum,
to be
but
able
it's
to say
more
if the
difficult.
kids get a fair shake. If they
It's
get a
more
fair shake, they're not
I
going to be
know
able
they
to
get
say
a
it.
fair shake. I'm telling you the negative recruiting perception, because guess what? Perception becomes reality. It's called fake news.
But that
And a
works
lot of people
itself
believe
out
fake
very
news.
quickly.
A lot of
I
people
mean,
believe
yeah,
fake news.
yes,
My
if none
point
of the
is,
out-of-state kids are getting to play, I get what you're saying.
Gary, what's easier? What's easier? Getting top local kids or getting kids from out of state that you got to battle 10 schools that are closer to them that are doing all this negative recruiting against Miami? What's easier? Get the
I'll tell you
top
what's
kids from
I'll tell you
here.
what the easiest
You're
thing
saying
is
walk
to
and
do.
chew gum, but the gum you're chewing is from 1980, and you just found it in a Topps pack of cards lying on the street,
Hey,
and it's probably going to make you sick for 10 years.
I'm going to tell you what's the easiest thing to do, and a lot of people fall victim to this. The easiest thing to do is say the best football players are from Dade County and Broward County, and that's it. We don't need to recruit outside of Dade and Broward County. The best players are here. That's a bunch of baloney. I mean, yes, obviously this is a recruiting hotbed, and there's very many good
you don't
players
listen very
every
well,
single
Gary. I
year.
said 80%.
But there are good players
80%
elsewhere
from around
too.
here.
And if you have somebody in the building with a staff in the building that can leave South Florida and go get the best players, go get Reggie Wayne, go get Ed Reed, go get Bryant McKinney. There are guys out there that can be elite football players that don't live in South Florida. And you have a staff in place now that can do it. And there's no reason for them not to do it.
Now you're saying what I said. Now you're saying what I said. Cherry pick the top kids, not
that's what they're doing.
Dumb and try to do the whole country at once. You start here.
They're not
doing
the whole country.
20% from out of state, which is what they did with Reggie Wayne and all the guys you just mentioned. They didn't recruit the entire country all at the same time back then. They had their focus in South Florida, and they cherry picked top guys, and that's exactly the guys you mentioned. That's what their formula was back then.
I'll make you a bet right now. The first full year, the first full cycle, which I guess is starting now, that Mario Cristobal's at Miami, if you take calendar year, say 2022, I guarantee you that the air hours, the flight hours in the recruiting budget at Miami will be 50% what they were at Oregon. Because at Oregon, they had no in-state talent. They had to travel around the country to get every single kid. They don't have to do that anymore. Right. So, yeah, they can cherry pick. But it doesn't mean if they have an elite kid in San Diego that wants to come to Miami that they can't go out to San Diego.
That's what I'm saying. You're just repeating what I said. That's not what you said. Maybe I misunderstood you. Your thing was we recruit nationally as much as in South Florida. I thought that's what we were saying. What I was saying is 80% in South Florida, 20% cherry pick nationally. If you're changing what you were saying to what I'm saying, great, because that's what it sounds like. And then I agree.
I'm going to say 60-40.
Whatever.
I'm going to change your percentages. I'm going to say 60-40. We'll compare notes a year from now when we have a full recruiting class under the Mario Cristobal coaching staff. But I'm going to say 60-40. All right, so let's move on. On that note, classes begin this week, and all the early enrollees are starting to show up. We've got a story on that on the website, so make sure you check that out. But another thing that's coming up this week is Elite Prospect Day, which is going to be this weekend, and you're going to see a whole lineup of the top prospects, many of them 2023, coming onto campus and visiting Miami, and we'll have tons of coverage on that. And the other thing to keep an eye out for this week is there's a huge 7-on-7 tournament down here, the Battle 7-on-7 event, which is this weekend. And you're going to have kids, not just the top local kids, you're going to have kids coming in from out of state to play for that. They're going to pop over to the Miami campus as well. So this weekend at Miami, it's going to be lit, okay? And we'll do the best we can to cover it all for you. We'll be everywhere, but it's going to be wild, very wild, and we'll have coverage on some of these kids as the week goes on. I'm not going to get into too much of it today because it'll keep taking shape as the week goes forward. All right, other things that we want to touch on today. Shamar Stewart, the guy that I have declared is the statement recruit of this cycle, was back on campus again this weekend. Miami home visited him late at night on Friday, and then on Thursday at midnight. Well, Friday midnight. Yeah, I guess I'll say the coaches showed up. It was the first day that they were allowed to home visit. Mario Cristobal was not among them because he already made his home visit to Shamar Stewart. But the staff showed up en masse and made another statement to Shamar of how important he is to Miami. And then to put an exclamation or a bow on it, Shamar comes to visit campus on Saturday, Matt, and the whole staff, the whole building empties out and meets him on the sidewalk when he arrives. And that had to make quite an impression.
Yeah, this is Mario's thing, right? He's patented this because I talked to another recruit who is a 2023 kid who was being recruited at Oregon, a West Coast kid who I think is actually coming down this weekend. But anyway, regardless, I can't remember who it is. I'll have to look it up. But he told me a story also, like predating obviously the Shamar thing, but like he went to visit at Oregon. And I guess at Oregon, you take an elevator to go up. So I don't know their setup, but he says you get in an elevator, you go up, I guess, to the coach's office, the conference room. I don't know. But he says the elevator doors open and there's Mario and all the coaches like, like screaming and yelling and, and I guess that's how they greet all the recruits when they come to Oregon. So I can only imagine at Miami, there'll be something similar for every recruit who dares venture on campus. They better have taken the parents better take your heart medication before you go. They'll be screaming and yelling as soon as the doors open to the heck or whatever. But I love it. It shows enthusiasm. There was, I mean, I know we can't talk about he who can't be named, but like it was so dull. I mean, we would literally watch the kids walk up into these recruiting events. We would watch them walk in.
Yep.
And there would be coaches standing there, and the coaches like might be having a conversation with another coach and not even acknowledge these top kids. There was a barbecue, I think June 1st and June 2nd of the summer, whatever, where it was an outdoor barbecue. We'd see the kids walk from the parking lot. We were right there. Walk from where we are in the parking lot into the barbecue event. And like Manny Diaz wouldn't even talk to these kids at these events. It was super weird. Like they had like sort of minions running around and like taking them on tours and giving them food. And that was like it. It was super weird. It's so different now. It's obvious just from reading the Shamar Stewart story, those of you that read it over the weekend, like how they're going to treat these kids now. It's going to be, almost like a parade, down Broadway, as so to speak. I'm from New York, obviously. Every time a kid comes on campus who's a top kid. So I think it's going to be a lot of fun to cover this team for a while now. For all those,
it goes a long way, though, man. I mean, they're doing really well with Shamar Stewart. I think they're going to get him. Like I said, I think Shamar Stewart.
Well, I think there's no doubt Miami's. I think no doubt Miami's team to beat. No doubt, 100%.
Yeah, and they couldn't be doing a better job recruiting them. Kudos to them, because I wouldn't have said that before the coaching change. I would have said Miami would finish number 2 or number 3, and that he would probably go to Texas A&M, and if not Texas A&M, Georgia. Now they got to sweat out a Georgia official visit. No argument. But I think Miami is the team to beat right now for Shamar Stewart. And that's obviously a good thing. All right. One thing I did fail to mention is 5-star receiver Brandon Innis will be among the players visiting that elite prospect day this weekend.
I actually already mentioned that. You were too busy ranting about the national recruits we're going to be bringing in instead of South Florida kids. So you missed that.
It's part of the group. But he's part of the group. But I did just want to, mention that he is part of the group that will.
Yeah, we did a story with him this morning. So that's a good story. Make sure you read that, because exactly. He's coming down after his 7-on-7 pool play with a bunch of other top players. So it's going to be great.
Yep. All right. Some other things going on. Just to make note of, we are on commit watch for the 2 offensive linemen that visited this weekend. Offensive lineman Matt McCoy and offensive lineman Dave Iuli.
What do you mean commit watch? What does that mean to you?
It means we're on commit watch.
Like it's imminent? It's not imminent.
I didn't say it's imminent.
Okay, so I just want to make sure people understand that.
I said I believe that both of these kids could possibly commit.
Right. Okay, I agree with that. Yeah, I agree with that, but they're not committing soon.
I didn't say it was going to be tomorrow.
Yeah, okay.
I said we're on commit watch,
okay.
and we feel the visits went well, and we think there's a decent chance that both of them could come to Miami, and we're on commit watch, and maybe it'll be for a week, maybe it'll be for 2 weeks.
And by the way, how great was it that Mario put Jake Garcia as the host for Dave Iuli? I can't remember. Usually, the guys come in for an official visit. It's almost always a position player. Like if you're an offensive lineman, you're hosted by an offensive lineman. Like that's just what they do. I mean, what a brilliant move. They're 2 LA kids, but like when you talk to Dave Iuli, I know most of you out there probably haven't talked to Dave Iuli, I'm imagining, unless he fields calls from all the fans. Like this guy is like, I don't even know how to put it. He's got a personality like old school Canes. I mean, he will get you fired up. Even as a reporter just talking to him, he's so energetic and so bubbly and so friendly and just such a great guy. And Jake Garcia is the same way. Like Jake Garcia has his outgoing personality, and as you know, you'll read the story that from late last night about Iuli's visit, but like they get along great, the two of them. And Iuli had a great time with Jake Garcia, and they're both LA boys, I think is what Iuli said.
I don't know how somebody could not have a good time with Jake Garcia.
Yeah, right.
I mean, he's like so energetic and fun every second. It's like
yeah. And Matthew McCoy is a little more reserved, obviously, but McCoy also had a great visit. But I think UF's probably the team that's probably in it with him. Miami, look, I think Miami feels they're in good shape with both those kids coming off these visits. They both had great times, but again, they're not like they didn't commit right off the visit. Let's put it that way. So you have to sweat it out, right? That's just the way it is.
It's recruiting. Yep. So
it's recruiting.
We'll see what happens there. All right, and before we go, I would be remiss if I didn't mention Matt's best friend, John Ruiz.
Oh, here we go.
Always making news. Had some epic Twitter battles over the weekend and stuff. But the one thing we are watching out for is we're hearing that John Ruiz is working on a lot of NIL deals right now. And at some point, they're going to be buttoned down, and we'll be able to talk about the players and maybe some of the amounts and things like that. But we've been talking about writing the checks, putting making the commitments, things like that.
I want to see some canceled checks. If John Ruiz is watching, put those canceled checks on Twitter. I want to see them.
Well, yeah, but you're asking somebody to put bank checks on Twitter. That's not fair. But the point is, he's signing contracts with players. Already signed Gilbert Frierson. Now he's going to do supposedly 10 more players contracts. Okay, these are signed contracts.
By the way, the reason I say the canceled checks, Gary, is people are saying like he's not for real on the like Billy Corbin and somebody went on the Lebitard show, who's high pretty well known at Miami. Like,
why don't they wait? Just wait. Let it play out.
Exactly.
They got to let it play out. They're the guy a fraud. Like they want to say that he's the guy driving around with the fraud license plate, and no, man. It's like, why don't just let it play out. This is not John Ruiz's car, okay?
Yeah, you don't know that.
Like, let it play out, okay? And if it turns out that he defaults on these contracts with the players and they don't get paid or the checks bounce or whatever, then we'll be ripping him to shreds. And Matt will be leading the parade. But, like, until then...
I won't be leading the parade. I'll be pissed. Like, listen,
I'm kidding.
Nobody wants John Ruiz to be more real than you and I. I mean, this is great for the program. It's great covering the program when the program's doing well. It's great to have kids at the program who actually have some money in their pockets to spend. Like, there's no downside. John Ruiz could be like the greatest person in the history of mankind, as far as I'm concerned. But, the detractors, and like Gary and I talked about it yesterday, just, on the phone, the two of us, because believe it or not, we actually have civil conversations very rarely, but we did have one yesterday on the phone privately, not on Good Morning CaneSport. And like, we spoke about it, and I called a couple more of my sources who know people, again, peripherally around John. And I checked back in with Gary, who spoke to some people too. And like, there's no doubt John Ruiz has had some issues in the past, but it doesn't mean that's the same person he is today. And what he's pledging to do today might be different than what he had pledged to do in the past, and maybe didn't uphold some of those, contracts, whatever they were, and there was a word kicked around that I guess fans can figure this one out, because I'm not a financial guy, but apparently a lot of what is going on has to do with something called a SPAC, which is SPAC, and it's some sort of, it's almost like an IPO type deal, but it's like raising money and something. So I don't know. So this apparently has something to do with how he's going to even amass a greater fortune than what he may or may not already have. And it's sort of in the works still. But I think a lot of people are expecting him to have the money he says he's going to have. And if that actually comes to fruition, I don't see why he wouldn't, honor these contracts that he's signing with people. And on top of that, I don't see, I just don't understand. I think the problem, the disconnect, is why is he on Twitter yelling at people that have 28 followers? Why is he on Twitter arguing with people about just nonsense? Like, that's just not what normal people do. So I think that's
because Matt, he can walk and chew gum.
Oh my God, you got to stop saying that, because it doesn't mean anything.
Two things. You got to get used to that concept. People can do two things. He can walk and chew gum. He can yell at people on Twitter. He can fight with Billy Corbin. He can do whatever the hell he wants. And he could do what he did this weekend. And one of the players that he signed to an NIL deal is believed to be Leonard Taylor, who I've heard got a $50,000 NIL deal with John Ruiz's Life Wallet, similar to Gilbert Frierson. So he's taking care of what he said he's going to do. One by one, he's signing these players to NIL deals to promote his new company. And, you know, it's all good. He just has to, if the checks just have to go through.
Like, I'm not a normal human being.
Detractors won't have anything to say.
No, hopefully not. I'm not a normal human being, but I am a human being, and I'm not a billionaire, but I play one on Good Morning CaneSport. And if I was a billionaire, like I'm playing one now, I certainly would not have time trying to get a business, you know, to raise money through a SPAC and go public or whatever the hell's happening. And supposedly somebody else told me he has some sort of lawsuit pending against FPL. I don't know if that's true.
Matt, the guy told me he sleeps 3-4 hours a night.
Okay, even if I didn't sleep at
He's got
all,
20 hours a day to do all this stuff.
I don't even have time to go through my own feed. And I've never tweeted once. Like, I shouldn't even mention because I shouldn't be on Twitter. I've never posted. Do not follow me. Whoever's watching this, I don't tweet. I only tweet promotional things on CaneSport. Okay, so don't bother following me. But my point is, if I had a real feed like John Ruiz does, I certainly would not have the time to go down the list of every single person on my feed, responding to them all. I'm trying to run $1 billion enterprise. Like I don't understand. That's what I don't understand, Gary. Explain that to me.
I don't know, man. I'll just say it. Like, people who have time, people who want to have time to do a lot of things can get a lot of things done.
I mean, you're living in his basement. Just go upstairs and ask him how he has the time to do that.
Not living in his basement, but his basement.
You won't take the background away to prove it. Take the background away to prove it.
Here's the one thing I want to make clear, though, like, because this is really a hot button, and obviously he's a guy that's been, you know, I mean, he's been around for a long time. He's been an attorney. He's obviously had cases against people and different things, and not everybody's his friend, and, you know, not everybody wants to see him succeed. We don't have skin in the game in this thing. Like Matt said, for us, it's like we see the opportunity for Miami, the Miami football program, for the Miami players to benefit from NIL. And there's not another guy who's, you know, God bless Dan Lambert. I mean, Dan Lambert stepped up last year and did $500,000, and I think he's going to do $500,000 again this year, possibly. But this guy's doing $10 million, okay? And there's not many people that have the wherewithal to do this, and he's choosing to do it if he ends up following through on what he has said, which he insists he is going to do. And if the checks really do clear, the players get their money, it's all going to be great. Now, if it falls apart and it ends up, you know, being fake or whatever, I mean, obviously that's going to be problematic for all these players that are going to have contracts with him. But I don't think he's entering into a $50,000 contract with Leonard Taylor and Gilbert Frierson with the intention of not paying the players the money every month that they got.
Yeah, he might listen. If you enter contracts with people, you obviously plan on honoring them unless something goes south. So,
right.
You know, I did talk to someone yesterday who said, like, he doesn't have the money yet, but he expects to have the money. So
how do they know? Like,
how do they know exactly? I don't know. They know people who know him. I don't know.
I mean, people say you don't pay your bills, like, but how do they really know? Like,
I told you my bills. I don't
sitting there with you with your checkbook every month. Like,
guess what? Do your kids know how to balance a checkbook? I taught my kids how to balance a checkbook, and they still won't do it because apparently you don't need a checkbook anymore. You don't need to balance a checkbook anymore. The money magically appears and disappears. Yeah. Nobody keeps track. Who cares?
Nobody keeps track of anything. Nobody keeps a ledger anymore. I agree. These kids, these millennials today, they put everything on auto pay, and they just let their bills hit. They don't check them. They don't make sure the right amounts are taken out. Everything's just on auto pay, and they better just make sure they have the money in the bank because the bills keep coming and they keep getting withdrawn. But this is how the millennials of today operate. Everything's electronic. Everything's on auto pay. You don't ever worry about writing a check. I can't remember last time one of my kids wrote a check. It's crazy. All right, Matt. Well, that's going to do it for today for Good Morning CaneSport. Expect a very active week, a lot going on, very exciting as we build towards Elite Prospect Day on Saturday. And with the early entrants coming onto campus, they'll start getting to work in the weight room with Coach Feld. A lot of exciting things going on with Miami football and Good Morning CaneSport. So for Matt Shodell, I'm Gary Ferman. We thank you for joining us again today. Have a great day, and we'll see you tomorrow, everybody.